played this game because they thought that there was no downside.
Joining us now to expand on this issue more broadly is Erin Elmore. She's the executive director of USA Strong, a contributor at Turning Point USA, and a columnist at townhall.com. So, Erin, I think that every reasonable person looked at Wednesday's events and can say that that was wrong. I mean, violence should be condemned wherever it is, but I think that in the days following, there's an interesting argument taking place as to what this means, because I've noticed that that is being used as a pretext to take further action for the future. Do you think that's what's happening?
I think it certainly is, and it's quite hypocritical given that what we saw over the last 6 to 8 months here in America with the BLM and Antifa protests. Yes, no political violence or violence of any kind should be tolerated, accepted, or even allowed in our society. We are better than this as a nation. We truly are. But having said that, where was the mainstream media when BLM and Antifa were burning cities to the ground? They were calling it mostly peaceful protests. I'm from Philadelphia. My city burned. My real estate values tanked. I had to leave for Florida. Places like New York City, there was destruction of property, statues torn down, graffiti, stores robbed, Minneapolis, the autonomous zones out in Seattle and Portland. This is not funny. This is actual crimes. 30 people lost their lives, police officers, women, children. It is terrible. Yet all of a sudden, when it's sort of on the right side of things, more conservative group, allegedly, we still don't know if they were actually conservatives, it's terrorism. No. I mean, people like Governor Cuomo said sometimes protests don't have to be peaceful. This, to me, is truly sickening.
And that's the problem, too. I mean, so many people want to make this about being pro-Trump or anti-Trump in the moment, but it's about really the argument that you set, the conditions that you set to take place in the future, because I heard a lot of people who were storming the Capitol building on Wednesday say, the lesson from this year is that political violence works. If we burn down our cities, we're going to get what we want the same way as the defund the police movement got exactly what they wanted. And that is the problem. When you allow it to fester at first, you give other people a reason to use that very same excuse. And I think that now what we're seeing is, for example, Josh Hawley. Simon & Schuster took away his book deal. We're seeing right now a massive purge taking place on social media platforms. Is this just the beginning of using that event, for example, to take action against people on social media or in real life for that matter?
Alex, this is 100% true, and you're only touching the iceberg of this. We're only scraping the iceberg, if you will. I mean, censorship, every American, left, right, or center, should realize this is scary. This is what happens in places like communist China. This is what happens in Nazi Germany. This is what happens in Venezuela. This is political speech censorship. Why would anyone thinks that's what should take place in America? It's absolutely terrifying. Listen, Josh Hawley hopefully will get picked up by another book publisher. I'm sure that he will. But this is just a sign of things to come. I've heard it go as far as saying that conservatives shouldn't be allowed to go to concerts, fly on airplanes, things of that nature. But I tell you what, there were over 70 million Americans who voted for Donald Trump, okay? There is a big faction of people out there that hold these values, and we are the populace, and we are the people that care about America and fly American flag and support our troops, and there has to be something done about this absolute crazy amount of censorship, because this is the United States of America, or at least it will be until January 20th.
And that's such an important point, because really, for example, if you want to deplatform someone, you're not doing anything to prevent what we saw on Wednesday or any other harm that they allege is taking place. You are pushing that individual off into a different fringe social media, if you will, or something of that nature, where those ideas still fester. And I would argue even more so without any type of pushback. And it happens for those on the left and the right. If they're not, for example, on a place where there's a public discourse taking place, I mean, you're just allowing certain ideas to fester. So I think that what these people are doing, for example, when they try to censor, is delaying the inevitable or pushing it off to somewhere else where it doesn't really take place. And I think that that is something that you just astutely point out. There are 75 million Americans in this country who have concerns about voter fraud, who don't like the direction that the country's going in, and to ignore them doesn't do anything for anyone. I mean, that is only problematic. How can Republicans really address this issue so that they do have a voice in these future debates?
I mean, I don't know how it's even fixable at this point, but you are absolutely right. I think it was a Gallup poll and a Rasmussen poll. Both of them came out and basically said that around 35% of Americans, that's, let me see the number. That is, I'll tell you right now, over 100 million Americans that said this election didn't seem free and fair. Okay, 100 million Americans said that this election wasn't free and fair. The only thing that can fix that is making the process seem fair. Otherwise, you are going to see violence from the left. You are going to see violence from the right. No, we shouldn't condone it. But when a democracy is broken, what happens? violence, because it's the only way to fix it. And that's the impasse that our elected officials are in and at. And what they should be doing is finding a way to restore people's faith in our democracy.
You're so right, because I mean, we could look at what happened over the summer. We could look at what happened on Wednesday, and I don't think you can sugarcoat it any other way. There is a major part of this population that has a big problem with the way things are going. I mean, on the left, for example, they're willing to burn down cities. On the right, they're willing to challenge the election and whatever happened on Wednesday, for that matter. And I think that there's an underlying issue that nobody in the media, nobody in politics wants to talk about, because really they know at the end of the day, if there are reforms that are made, it comes to a detriment of the power and the status quo that they already hold. And I think that's why we're not seeing any change be done about it. But Erin Elmore, I appreciate you coming on the program tonight and helping us understand this difficult moment that we're in. Thank you.
Alex, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
And still ahead.